What's the question? What's happening? Sorry. I'm still thinking about it.
I'll go first. I'm Jason Barrett. I'm the Chief Executive of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo.
And I'm Alan Lane, and I'm the Creative Director of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo.
Great question, Ross. What's our goals for the next few years? It's something that we talk about often. And after entering our 75th year, we have a lot to play for. And it's really an exciting time for the tattoo. First thing is we continue to enhance what we do here in Edinburgh. That's our core. That's the crown jewels, and we think we have much to do. And Alan will speak a little bit about this as we go forward in his first year as creative director. But what else? I think we are looking beyond Edinburgh as well. With a brand like ours, why not? And we look to take the tattoo on tour. We've been overseas before in Australia. We're looking to go back there again, maybe as soon as 2026. But also, is there a touring opportunity in North America, let's say, and we're exploring that. We also want to diversify some of our offerings and see what more we can do beyond the large-scale tattoo and maybe do smaller tattoos or even stage offerings. What would the tattoo look like in Royal Albert Hall, by example? So, yeah, there's much that we're looking at, research and developing all of that as we speak. Really excited about the future. We are military, first and foremost, and we commit to that, and we're invested in that, and they are our most important partner. We look at the show and see how much we reflect the military, and whilst in some minds it could be more, we think it's pretty balanced. Now, there was a time, as probably what you're referring to, that there was military exercises, if you will, or demonstrations on the Esplanade, like gun drills or parasailing off the castle and things like that. We're not going to return to that, but what we really want to showcase is the precision of the military, and particularly military music. And we do that with the best bands in the world, particularly not only from the United Kingdom, but other militaries. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think right at the heart of the show we're making are the military values. It's an army lead, and we're talking about the heroes who made us, the 75 years of history in which the military's been a key component, but also we're looking out into the world, and the values and standards that the army particularly, but the military more broadly are at the heart of our show. So I think if Willie comes to see the show, then he's going to be really pleased with how much military there is through it. I think it's a part of our identity. There are 4 words in the title, right? And one of them's military, and I think we hit that standard.
Indeed. I think a fair question, but one at which we look at very closely because we get that question, and I'm not sure if how true that is, because I think there's a number of factors that go into that. Firstly, at our core, we are military. The partnerships we have, the engagement we have, hasn't changed as far as I can tell, certainly in my experience here, which goes on 4 years, but also by speaking to many that have been around a lot longer than I have. So that commitment is strong with the military. They look to us as one of their most significant engagement platforms annually, and that is a badge of honor for us. They commit military bands, some of the best military bands in the world, annually to us. Last year we had the entire 3 bands of His Majesty's Royal Marines dedicated to us for over a month. I think that's incredible. The other aspect I think to consider is this, and this may be something of historical context to that question, is the UK military has gotten smaller. I think all told it might be 75,000 personnel total. And so there may have been a day where there were more bands, more troops that could be committed to the tattoo. But we're impressed with what the UK military does dedicate to us in such a shrinking military. So I think there's a context there that sometimes is lost by people.
Also, what the military send is really important to us. We place it front and centre. We put not just the performers and the music and the musicians, but also the values. One of the first people that I was talking to about the show, as it was the nascent beginnings that me and you were talking about, was to go and talk to the army lead, because it's an army lead this year. That's really vitally important. But But it's also true that there's always been other things in our show. There's a brilliant woman who works here who always talks about being contemporary in year. If you were here in 1962, you would have seen a twist happening on the Esplanade. There's always been other things than military marching bands in our show, and I don't think they're any more than they've ever been. I think that it's really important, both for me and you, to have the military at the heart, the values at the heart, but there has to be other elements to our show. Otherwise, it won't be able to do all the things we want it to do.
Well, not only that, I think sometimes within that question is when they ask that question, or when that sort of implication is made, they're referencing some of the old really military types of things, like gun drills or parasailing off the castle, or the police dogs, the military police dogs, and things like that. And you know, that's just an evolution of the show. Probably, as I referenced before, that the military doesn't have those assets to dedicate. And then B, you know, we want to creatively evolve what we do and be more, in some ways, an entertainment offering versus a military demonstration. That's just a creative choice. There was something called the Royal Tournament at one point, which had more of those elements to it. But with a tattoo, and I think we demonstrate what a tattoo is by all the other different forms of entertainment we offer.
Yeah.
Gene, great question. We don't get that question very often.
Verbal commentary. I don't.
We know exactly what you mean, and over to Alan.
I give this a crack. Yes, Gene. Please be reassured. One of the things since I've been here for the last 7 months is how receptive this organisation has been, and how clear they've been with me in listening to people, and also simultaneously how we want to constantly be evolving the show and finding new ways of entertaining and thinking about what a tattoo looks like in the future. I'm a theatre director by trade. I don't know how to understand something as brilliant and as epic as the tattoo if a storyteller isn't at its heart. I don't read music, I have to understand it through stories. And so we know there will be a storyteller on the Esplanade next year for the 75th show. That means there will be a character who exists in every one of the scenes that we can see and we can hear, and whose job it is to tell us not only what we're seeing, but also why we're seeing it, to stitch it together in a compelling, emotional narrative. And I'm hopefully Gene and all the other people who give us this question are going to see that and go, great, that is what we've been looking for, but in a new contemporary 2025 way. And so I'm really excited. I'm very excited for people to see this. I think it's a great example of how this organisation cares so passionately about the people who perform the show and the people who come and see the show, that you at the top and all the way through the organisation, the care with which you're listening and driving that change through, I think, will be seen in the show. Brian, there absolutely can be many of the evening hymn, last post, and some of the core things that people really love about the tattoo in this year's show. The Heroes Who Made Us does a number of things, but one of the most important things it does is look at the 75 years of the history of this show and celebrates it. So some of those things are going to be in the show because of course they're going to be in the show. I love the history of the tattoo more than any other piece of theatre I've ever seen, and it has so many of these building blocks. The mass pipes and drums, the evening hymn, the mass military bands, that you want to put as many of them into every show as you possibly can. As we develop, and as Jason talks about, diversify and working in other markets, in other places, you want to make sure you're using them not all at once and all at the same time. So you're not going to always see all those things in every show, but what you are definitely going to get in the creative of this show and all the shows that I make here with Jason is someone on a team who really understands that tradition and who's making sure that as many of them as possible are in. So I hope, again, if you come this year, Brian, to see the show, you'll see many of your favourites, but perhaps framed in a way that you weren't expecting, perhaps given a little twist so that you're surprised and delighted by them, but absolutely honouring the 75 years of the achievement of this brilliant organisation.
Yeah, and I would just add, Brian, as well, that this has given us a new opportunity. Alan's our second ever creative director, and we've learned a lot over the last 3 years, and we've looked at the show in its entirety to say, what more can we do? What things do we need to return to? What things do we need to emphasize? What things do we need to revisit? And with Alan bringing a fresh look at this whole thing, we couldn't be more excited about some of those things, either putting a new spin on it or returning to some of the things that made us great throughout all these years. why has the exit music been shortened? Dan, good question, but news to me, because I can't think if it has been. Maybe
the ending of the tattoo is one of the most iconic moments in British theatre, and we are not going to mess with that. The way that the cast leave, walk down the Royal Mile, playing is a beautiful, brilliant moment, and we are definitely not going to shorten it. I think also right at the end of the show, it's such an endeavour, this show. 900 people on the Esplanade, 9,000 people in the stands, occasionally some Scottish weather. There is a sense in which there is a moment right at the end of the show where the cast get to wave and the audience get to applaud, and that is genuinely beautiful. That's a moment of ceremony that is one of the many brilliant things I love about the show. We're not going to shorten that down, so again, I'll see you on the Royal Mile this year and we can wave the cast on the coaches together.
Great question, Chris. How do we select the music for the massed pipes and drums? Again, I'm going to defer to our creative director. He would know a thing or two about that.
Yeah, it's what he's got me for. So we've just finished doing that for Edinburgh 25. There is a brilliant music team here. Nick Grace is our musical director. We have Stevie Small, the master of bagpipes, and we also work obviously with the Army School of Bagpipes, and they have their leaders. And so we all get together. One of the things we're thinking about is what is the show and what is the endeavour of the show, the heroes who made us. So we're looking at the classic themes, but we're also then looking at what's happening in year. What is the makeup of the mass pipes and drums? Obviously every year there are different pipes coming, so they have a different flavour, they come from different parts of the world. We want to represent all of that in our music selection. And then we tend to get a long list, and then we make sure that we're not clashing with other bits of the show, that we're not playing Loch Lomond 4 times in an evening. And once all that's done, we boil it all down into a playlist, and then it's scored and sent out, ideally, to the pipers before Christmas, because they need to spend this long learning it. So that process is just finished for Edinburgh Tattoo 25. It's looking good.
It's one of the more extraordinary things, and it is one of the core elements of the show. And 12 files, 240 pipers and drummers from all over the world, and then they come together and, to what Alan says, to get their music, rehearse it at home, and then come here. Yeah, it's one of those things that even though we get to see the show every single night, it's extraordinary every single night because of that. John, great question. What is the dress code in the Royal Gallery? Thank you for asking, by the way. Kind of you to ask. Some don't ask. No, I'm being funny. It is. It's a unique experience. It is, dare I say, it is our VIP experience. And not to say that so it's intimidating or anything like that. It's just a setting. And when you're in the Royal Gallery, you're part of that setting. So what you'll see up there, particularly with military, high-ranking military personnel, they'll be in their mess dress or their finest kit. You'll see others in typically black tie, but suits are okay, and the associated attire for women as well. Some gowns, others are dresses. But it is in your finery when you're up there, because it is special.
The thing that really struck me this last year in the Royal Gallery was how many people going to the Royal Gallery was a once in a lifetime, something that they'd wanted for decades and
Very
saved
special.
for.
Yeah.
And the emotion of that actually was really, this is a show that works on people on a number of different levels. So that's really exciting. And if that's going to happen, I want to make sure I'm dressed really smartly for when that's happening. So.
A number of aspects to that to address, and that is something that after 75 years, firstly, is to point to that we're a charity, I think, and in doing so, we need to manage how we go about that. We've taken great pride, and I would dare say the performers have taken great pride in it being a volunteer performer group as we go forward. And in some ways that makes us unique and it makes us special. That's not to say that there are other entertainment offerings out there that are incredible and they pay their performers. We just think that that is one of the aspects and the characteristics of the tattoo that makes us distinct, makes us unique, and in some ways a point of pride by the performers, because they come together and they perform on an elite level as volunteers, and I think that's just special.
Yeah, I mean, one of the many reasons why I was so excited to come and join the team here is that the Edinburgh Tattoo is a community show. It's a community of communities. People come in their gangs from all over the world to make this extraordinary and unique thing, and they have for the last 75 years. And whilst it is absolutely, as Jason says, unique, it also sits in a brilliant tradition of British theatre, whether it be the opening of the Olympics or the community shows we have at the National Theatre, or mystery plays back in the medieval times, where community performers that are not paid own this thing, they drive this thing. The principal engine of the tattoo are those community performers that give their absolute all at the highest standards as an act of service to both the show, but also to our charitable aims.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest compliments we receive, or I receive when I'm in the Royal Gallery afterwards, or even walking around, is it's performed at such a high level that people can't believe it's volunteer performers. And to go back to what I said in the beginning, I think this is about our charitable aims. And that is what we lead with. We put on this show to raise money to give to charity, and have since our start. We give in pre-COVID up to £1 million a year, largely to military charities that support veterans and their families, but also Scottish traditional arts. So you see that virtuous cycle there of what we're able to do with bringing some of the most talented volunteer performers from around the world come together, put on a spectacle unlike anything in the world, and raise money to give it away. I think it's that again, it makes the tattoo that much more special.
Yeah.
So why is the tattoo so expensive? Really good question. And we get that a fair bit. And we ask ourselves that same question because we want to be responsible with our offering. It's not as straightforward. It's like any business. We wrestle with and are challenged with rising costs. Certainly in the last 3 to 5 years, everybody sees cost of living. They see what inflation has done, and we're no different. So it is with balancing the costs of putting on what we think is an incredible spectacle of entertainment with an appropriately priced ticket. And it is that balance that we hope to achieve, all to raise money for charity so we can give that money away. So it's a fair question. It's a good question. It's one, again, that we look at very closely every single year to make sure we strike the right balance.
I think one of the things I bring, as I've spoken about before, I'm a theatre director, so I have to understand this epic, brilliant show as a story, as a thing that we want to make the audience emotionally engaged for 90 minutes. One of the things I bring is that I genuinely love community theatre. That's my background. I believe in honouring and making sure you represent the communities in the show the best you possibly can, and whether it be the military or whether it be traditional Highland arts, we have this amazing platform, hundreds of thousands of people live, millions of people on television, for art forms that we both genuinely love, that we know to be brilliant, and we want as many people to understand not only how great they are, but to see them in this extraordinary context. And so that passion is something that I think I bring to the role. But also the thing that I suppose, the thing I want to draw attention to is the thing I didn't have to bring to the role. I arrived and there is this extraordinary team. The creative team and the staff here have this brilliant history of making this show, and to arrive and literally to be handed the keys and being like, don't crash this, steer it well, that's amazing, because that team is brilliant.
Yeah, it is an amazing team, and they bring so much to everything we do, whether it be through the Scottish traditional arts, which is at our core. But really, I think coming out of COVID, what we did very intentionally is invest in the business to advance our technical aspects, our production aspects of the show, and brought in best in class in lighting and sound and projection, by example. And so it's with that we've elevated, and now over to you to elevate that much more. Whoa.
This is the big
great question.
Slow down, Jeremy Paxman.
No, I can't wait to hear the answer to this.
My favourite cheese, I've done the research. It's an Isle of Mull cheddar. Yeah, I had some this weekend. It's absolutely gorgeous. I strongly recommend it. Runner up, in case you're looking, Lanark Blue.
Playing to your audience, well done.
Yeah, good well solid done. Scottish cheeses
there. You go. Great question, which has been asked by many. What do we do for the rest of the year? I will start.
Yeah.
It is a good question, though, because, and somewhat maybe counterintuitively, I can speak as a chief executive. My busiest time of year is September through December, which people may cock their head at. But it is that, once the show is done, we begin to assess, analyze, reconcile what that show was, and to the whole business with lessons learned, with offsites with staff and senior management team and the board. There is the budgeting process for the next year. There is business development, research ongoing, which referenced some previous questions about what else do we want to do beyond Edinburgh and some of the growth strategy that we have. And so it's just, it is our time really to lean into planning for the future, because things post-Christmas and we get into the spring, then things start picking up pace for the show come August. So it really is about doing what we can to set conditions for success in those months following the show.
Yeah, I also think the tattoo is in your life more than people think it is. So it plays up there for the month of August, but you know, if you're watching BBC Alba this weekend, then you'll see us at the Hooley at the Hydro, and you'll see us performing alongside Skippenish at the Castle. You'll see us opening this event or that event. You'll if you're abroad, you might see us scoping a tattoo elsewhere, or to support other. We were sat down with Papua New Guinea recently just to say they love what we do here. They want to do it themselves, and it's only fair for us to sit down for a couple of hours with our friends and say, like, look, this is how we do it. You must go your own way. So I think just the sheer power and brand of the REMT exists in the world, and way more than you think it does. And the plans that you have will mean that but even before those plans,
yeah, that's a great
the tattoo is there a lot.
Yeah, that's a great point. We do send teams abroad quite regularly, whether it be Dusseldorf in September, Oslo in April, America also in April for their Tartan Week over there. So there's always something going on.
Yeah.
Why so many international acts? So it'd be interesting to see what the comparison was from years ago, but I can speak to certainly the last 4 years, and even before that. You know, international acts have been a part of the show for quite some time. I like to, when I speak about the tattoo, it really is sort of 4 elements. It is the Scottish traditional art element, which the tattoo performers exhibit. It is the military, which we bring military service leads in. This year is the Army. Last year was the Royal Navy, and they feature very strongly. And then thirdly is international acts, which really bring the cross-cultural component to the tattoo, which we really like to showcase on a world stage, because the tattoo is a global brand. Now with that international, not only is it international performer groups, but it is international militaries as well. And so they make up that third component. And the fourth component, which I speak to, is the castle itself. But I think the international element of our show is vital.
Yeah, and it's been a part since nearly the very beginning. The show came out of a need to celebrate and bring some joy post-war, and did that brilliantly, and very quickly it started to move to what it is now, which is not only entertainment, but it's incredibly useful to the military, to the government, to all sorts of other people, and it knew that in the mid-50s. And so, you know, as early as I think 53, that we had American guests, and from there all sorts of different militaries and different communities are coming, and I think that's an important part. You know, on our creative wall is we've got to make sure that we've got a whole strand of that work. That isn't something for us to hide. That's something for us to be really proud of.
And we are, I think the other thing to add to that is we are an engagement platform, and something we take great pride in, bringing countries together, bringing leaders of countries together, which again, I think the tattoo is uniquely positioned to do that. And when you have an international act come from a country that is an ally to the United Kingdom, you know, we create an opportunity for these countries to get together.
Yeah, one of the things that you learn here when you join is that connection is one of our core values, and one of the, like, on a daily basis we host. We in Papua New Guinea last Friday, tomorrow it'll be, what day is it? The Turkish are here, and that's really important. The ability to bring those communities together for the endeavour of August. Absolutely, that's like being on a sports team, but just on a weekly basis, the different types of people that come through this place to talk about culture, to talk about music, to talk about precision, is really, I don't know another place you can go to and get that. That's really important. I would be loath to throw that away because we didn't quite frame it, our history, in the right way. I think it's an important value.
COVID forced us to look at our business in new ways. Part of that is to understand just how vulnerable we were with a single revenue stream coming from the Esplanade in Edinburgh, something that we were very happy with and were very successful with. But when something like COVID happens, it challenges you to think differently. And now we're looking at how we can diversify. What more can we do? What more should we do with a brand like ours that's been strong for 75 years? I think it gives us an opportunity. We see potential. We see potential in doing things beyond Edinburgh in touring propositions, whether they be in Australia or North America, but also looking at what more we can do beyond tattoos, like stage propositions, like Royal Albert Hall per se, or Tattoo the Musical. So, we have a variety of things that we're looking at that we are really excited to explore, innovate, evolve what we offer. Where do you buy tickets?
Where you buy tickets online.
Online.
Don't say the www.
I won't. I thought you had to. edintattoo.co.uk
That's where you
is where you can buy the tickets.
August 2025, the heroes who made us.
Can't wait.
We're hilarious, Jason. We're hilarious.
Well, you got the cheese one. I didn't get it. I'm out
Where's
to get a
yours
food
then?
one.
You get your favorite cheese.
Oh my God! I mean, the list is long, but
Be bold.
okay. Well, I like Stilton.
I mean, I'm not going to say I like Stilton in Scotland. I like Lanark Blue.
Good man.
Oh, look at you!
So good.
I love Stilton.